Today, we're going to talk about how iOS updates have changed forever, a crazy exploit that could be impacting your AirPods, Apple's new partnership with Google, a potential real first look at iOS 17, and much more. And before we jump in, I just wanted to mention that if you're not already subscribed to the Apple Den newsletter, click the link down in the description below to sign up. It is a free weekly newsletter where I give you exclusive Apple insights, news, wallpapers, you name it. It's there in that newsletter, and it's also very community driven. So I would appreciate it if you went ahead and signed up. It's completely free, really no risk to you. You could always unsubscribe if you don't like it. Anyways, let's start with iOS 17 because we are just about a month away from seeing the very first beta of iOS 17 at Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference on June 5th. So last week we discussed some new iOS 17 features that could be coming to the iPhone, but now we have renders. We have actual mock-ups of what these features could look like. So here is the supposed redesign coming to the wallet application with iOS 17. So it includes a swipe down to search anywhere. It has sorted tabs for cards, cash, keys, IDs, and orders. And it has the new all transactions button and much more. So this looks very much like something Apple would do, but of course, always take these leaks with a grain of salt. Nothing is confirmed, of course, until Apple officially is on stage or, it's on their website. Until they confirm it, nothing is completely true. But these look very Apple-like, I will say that. Here's what the new health app could look like. So we have the favorites section, and this looks way better. So it's a redesign, and you're gonna be able to kind of glance at all of your data within these squares. So they're empty, but just imagine there's data in those squares, maybe just, numeric, or maybe there's a graph in some of them. And we also heard that the health app is coming to iPadOS this year, so this could also be what we see on iPadOS, which would look great on those bigger squares. And then most exciting to me is this. This is the new supposed lock screen customization screen. So the leaker says it's gonna have these features: an all new grid view display where you can see 9 wallpapers at once. You'll be able to delete wallpapers quickly within the grid view. You'll be able to arrange the order of wallpapers in the grid view, which is something I wish we had right now on iOS 16. And you'll be able to share or duplicate wallpapers by swiping up in single view. And again, this looks very, very Apple-like. Like a lot of the concepts that, where people don't really have a real source, they come up with things that just don't really look exactly like Apple would do it. But these mock-ups, every one of them, look very Apple-like. So again, take it with a grain of salt, but I'm just saying these look, pretty close to legit if you ask me. And for the new upcoming version of watchOS 10, Mark Gurman just recently reported that watchOS 10 will introduce an all-new system of widgets for interacting with the Apple Watch. So he said that these widgets will be a central part of the new interface. Okay, so now we need to talk about 2 first-of-its-kind software updates that we got this week. The first is a security response update. So this is the very first time Apple has pushed out a security response update to the public. So we've had multiple beta tests in the past, but this past week on Monday, we got our very first look at a public rollout of a security response update for 16.4.1. And you can see in the About section right here, it says 16.4.1a, and when you tap on that, it shows rapid security response at the bottom, and you're actually able to remove that security response if you want to. Now, I would recommend not doing that because this, of course, is just going to be, keeping your device as secure as possible, but you do get that option along with that new build number right there in parentheses. And the other first of its kind update that we saw this week was an AirPods security update. And this one is very interesting. So both the AirPods and the Beats earbuds got security patches, and the impact of the vulnerabilities that Apple patched is quite disturbing. So here's what Apple says the impact was. When your headphones are seeking a connection request to one of your previously paired devices, an attacker in Bluetooth range might be able to spoof the intended source device and gain access to your headphones. And as you can see, this was actually patched in firmware update 5E133, which was the previous firmware update, the one that was released last month, not the latest 5E135, which I just made a video on here on the channel last week as well. So it's good that Apple was able to patch up this security exploit, but it's still quite alarming to know that things like this could happen on the AirPods, through that Bluetooth frequency. So it's good that Apple is able to patch these with a firmware update, even on the AirPods. That makes me wonder about like the MagSafe update. Like the MagSafe charger also got an update this week. Is there some type of, vulnerability out there where somebody can stop the charging on your phone or something? Like, because we don't know what was fixed in that update, but it just makes you wonder. And speaking of security, we have something a little bit more serious to talk about, and that is related to macOS malware, because there's a new player on the block. It's called Atomic macOS Stealer, and it is designed to steal keychain passwords, credit card info, crypto, and more. It's currently being sold on the open market, so I would expect to see, kind of an influx of malware infected devices. So that's why you need to be aware of this. So here's how it works. A DMG file is used to get the malware on a victim's machine, and once the user installs it, a fake password prompt that looks something like this is displayed to obtain the system password. Then it instantly starts accessing your sensitive information and sends it to a remote server. Now, thankfully, this specific malware requires you to download something and open something and physically type in your password. So that means that it is something that is avoidable. It's not something that you just open up an email and all of a sudden you're infected. So here's what the research firm who dissected this recommends doing. So they say to install software only from verified sources or from the Mac App Store, use strong passwords and two-factor authentication, use biometric authentication where possible, and this isn't what they said, but here's what I say. Don't download files from emails, especially emails of somebody that you have no idea who it is. I mean, personally, I don't download a single thing from emails, even if it's like my mom. I don't do it. It's just too dangerous out there. There's too many things going on in the world right now, too many exploits. macOS is not, just some superior operating system that cannot get viruses. That is just a big myth. You can get this malware pretty easily if you download random files all the time. So just be aware that this is going on right now. All right, so moving on, let me get a show of hands. Who expected a new Apple and Google partnership to be announced this week? Anybody? Yeah, I didn't either. But it's a good thing because this is all related to AirTags and unwanted tracking. So Apple and Google jointly submitted a new industry specification to help combat the misuse of AirTags and Bluetooth item trackers. With this new specification, they're going to expand the AirTag-like unwanted tracking alerts to third-party item trackers like Tile, Chipolo, Eufy, and more, all in future versions of iOS and Android. So I think this is an excellent move that's really a win-win for both parties, both Apple and Google, especially with the massive spike in, stalking cases or whatever else, the other nefarious reasons that people are using AirTags for these days. It's going to be really nice to have a unified kind of global alert system when an item is tracking you. And speaking of Google, they also announced something else pretty big this week, and that is support for passkeys. And I'm very excited about this one. So if you're unfamiliar, passkeys were implemented in iOS 16 and provide a more secure way to access your accounts because you don't actually use a password. You log in with your biometrics, your Face ID, your Touch ID, or your passcode. And because of this, passkeys are resistant to attacks like phishing and SIM swapping for a two-factor authentication code. So if you want to create your Google Passkey, just go to your Google account and then go to create a passkey. I will also have this linked down in the description below. And passkeys on iOS and macOS, they do sync with iCloud Keychain, so it will be saved, but it still will require like Face ID or Touch ID when you go to log in. But again, this is so much better. I think that we eventually need to completely get rid of the password and just have everything like passkeys. And then remember how last week we talked about CarPlay and how GM was ditching CarPlay for their own proprietary software? Well, we have good news, and that is that Ford has said they are not going anywhere with CarPlay. Ford's CEO, Jim Farley, said this: 70% of our Ford customers in the US are Apple customers. Why would I go to an Apple customer and say good luck? I think that is about the best and most realistic response I've ever heard a CEO give to a question. So that is good news. If you have a Ford, if you're looking to get a Ford in the future, just know that it will have CarPlay on it. Oh, and speaking of CarPlay, I did run a poll in last week's Apple Den newsletter issue, and the results were pretty interesting. And so I asked basically, would you buy a car that did not have CarPlay? And the responses were pretty great. It seemed like most people were completely against buying a new car without CarPlay. Also this past week, Apple dropped the 4th developer beta and public beta for iOS 16.5, and there's only pretty much 2 things changed in this. So if I go up here and then I go into my wallpaper and go to add new wallpaper, we do have a new section here under Unity for Pride. So we only have one wallpaper under the Pride section, but that is now separated, whereas it was not before. Now, in addition to that, we just have other minor code changes on the back end that are related to the wallet application and other minor changes throughout the OS. Now, the latest beta of macOS Ventura was causing some Wi-Fi issues and overall network issues. So, that's why you should always not install betas on your main device. Always do it on a secondary device. Now, me personally, on both Macs that I installed the beta on, I have absolutely no issues. So it seems like that is not very widespread, but some users were having issues with connectivity. So just keep that in mind. Now, as far as what's coming next for Apple in terms of the next software release, we should be seeing iOS 16.5 RC next week. So we did just get the 4th beta, which does have an A at the end of the build number. So I would expect to see an RC release or a release candidate release drop next week. So it's most likely going to be on Tuesday, May 9th. Now the RC builds always come out at very sporadic times, so it really could be any day next week, but I would still expect to see that next week, followed by the final release of 16.5, most likely on May 15th, if not sometime that week. And then after 16.5 gets released to the public, we should see 16.6 beta 1 get pushed out to developers. That could be as early as the very next day. And then of course, after that, down here on June 5th is when we will see iOS 17 beta 1 after the Worldwide Developers Conference. All right, so now let's do some quick fire news about some app updates from this past week. First up is live activity support for Uber Eats. So you can now see the status of your Uber Eats order on your lock screen, or if you have an iPhone 14 Pro Series with a dynamic island, you will see it up there in that dynamic island. Now, I ordered it today and I ended up wasting my money because I didn't have the feature. I only ordered Uber Eats just to see if I had the feature, and I didn't have it, even though it is enabled in settings. So it looks like it is a slow rollout for now. You should be seeing it with due time. Apple Arcade just added 20 new games to the collection, and you can see the list of those new games here. Now, Apple Arcade is $5 a month for access to hundreds of games, and I used to be really against this service. I never really publicly said it, but I used to be against this service until I got the Apple TV, because I love playing these games on the Apple TV, like more than my PS5. I love playing these games. So I think it's awesome, and I love how Apple is continuously adding, new games to the collection. I think it's definitely worth the $5 a month if you game even like one time a week. If you're a WhatsApp user, you have a big update coming pretty soon. And this feature is going to allow you to transfer your chat history to another iPhone without using iCloud. And the reason this is so big is because WhatsApp can take up a lot of space. So especially if you're on like the free 5 GB plan, it could take up like 4 GB if you use WhatsApp a lot. So it's pretty big news that you're not going to have to worry about that in the future moving forward. Now, this is only a beta feature for now, but it will be rolling out to everybody in due time. If you have an Apple Card and you signed up for the high yield savings account, which I did, you can see mine right here. We did just get our first payment. So you can see down here on Sunday, it shows my interest paid is $3.78. So it's nice to see that we got our first interest payment this past week. And also, according to Forbes, this high yield savings account saw up to $990 million in deposits within the first 4 days after launch. And that's pretty impressive, especially because 4.15% is great, but it's not like it's the highest out there. So it's pretty awesome to see. They seem to be doing pretty well so far with this high yield savings account with Goldman Sachs. So that is the latest iOS news of this past week. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Also, let me know in a comment down below. Do you like how I'm separating the 2 topics now? So I have one video now that's kind of like iOS Weekly for software related news, and then I have Apple Weekly, which is more for like the iPhone leaks and all the hardware stuff. Do you like that I have those 2 videos separated, or do you want me to go back to doing everything in one, 25-minute video? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, because I'm still kind of going back and forth on this decision. I just want to do what you guys, I want to provide you what you want best. Or I should say what you like best and what you want most. Anyway, you know what I'm saying. So if you enjoyed the video and you have not already subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button down below. Also check out the Apple Den newsletter if you're into email newsletters. Even if you're not into them, I personally hate them. So that's why I wanted to write a newsletter that I would actually read. So that's why I think you might enjoy it as well. That is also linked down there in the description below, along with if you want to buy me a coffee, that's down there as well, because I've had a lot of people ask me, to buy me a coffee. So I figured I may as well set one out. But anyway, I'll stop rambling. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you soon.